Where do you come up with the figure 90%?
Well, this is from the, I can't give you the jury, but this is the figure that pulmonary surgeons will give you. About 10%, but 10% is horrible. When you think about it, you might have a 200% greater chance of having lung cancer if you smoke. So when you say it that way, it's horrible. But it's just not like everybody who smokes. So people have a right to smoke. Tobacco companies have a right to sell their tobacco. And people have the right to and their obligation to assume their responsibility for their own acts. But not to come begging to the government.
Well, tobacco companies do not have a right to sell to our children, specifically to get them started at an early age.
Okay, fine. I would agree with that, as they don't have the right to sell drugs to children. But when did the federal government get involved, and where does the authority come from? The federal government to teach kids good habits. That's what you're saying. Where does the First Amendment tell you that you can tell companies how they should advertise? That should be a local matter. I mean,
do you take money from the tobacco lobby?
Not to the best of my knowledge, I haven't. And actually, when I was running for the state senate back in 1988, I got a check from a tobacco company. I sent it back. They sent it back to me, and I figured if they were going to keep sending it to me, I'd use it. So I deposited it in my campaign account and wrote a like amount to the American Heart and Lung Association.
You had a fundraiser with President Clinton, I think, a couple weeks ago.
Oh, it was back in November.
My question is, under the proposal that campaign finance reform proponents are calling for, would those kinds of events be allowed under the proposed changes?
Under the campaign finance reform that went through the Senate, hopefully we can get through the House. It would mean that you would have to limit the amount of PAC money and have a majority of your money come from within your state, and voluntary limits as to how much you would raise. So absolutely you could have a fundraiser like that.
Isn't this a limitation on people's freedom? If the courts have already ruled that if you're wealthy, you can spend your money the way you want,
right?
Even in politics.
I agree with you. I think one of the real drawbacks, there's no campaign finance reform plan that is perfect out there, absolutely not. But I think we do have to get to a point where we're saying we are spending way too much money, and the average person doesn't feel like their participation is getting them anywhere if they write you a $10 or $15 or $20 check. And frankly, one of the most important things is full accountability, so people know where you're getting your money.
I agree. You should have it, but why not talk about the incentive, the reason for people to come up here and bring $100 million a month? It's because they're going to get something for it. If you don't remove that incentive, they're always going to come.
I'm not sure what you mean by $100 million.
$100 million a month is being spent by the lobbyists. That's how much they spend to influence our votes. I mean, it's horrible, so I agree with you that it's a serious problem. But you're saying come down upon the people and say, well, we're going to limit the way you can spend your own money, infringe on their freedom, rather than saying the problem is us. It's our government. It's our size of our government. We have so much for sale. And this is the problem. So as long as we can influence, say, these farmers who want IMF bailouts to protect the farmers, or the Export-Import Bank to export our products, they're going to come and lobby.
I'll have to respond to you that, you know, I came here knowing what I believed in. I know what I came here believing that was my job to represent my constituents all the way across the country in Washington State. I'm not bought or influenced by anybody who walks into my office. I certainly believe there's a lot of people who bring information to us that's important for us to hear, so we can make sure that the policies we set and the votes that we take are educated votes. But we don't have to be influenced by anybody we don't want to be influenced by.
We're joined here on the table with Senator Patty Murray of Washington and Congressman Ron Paul, who represents cities including Victoria, San Marcos, and West Columbia, Texas, as we get a call from Shelburne, Vermont. Good morning on our Democratic line.
Yes, I wanted to talk about the campaign finance reform. As Senator Murray said, the real problem in campaigning is the soft money. And a former agricultural committee commissioner from the state of Texas, Mr. Paul's state, and the state in which I was raised, Jim Hightower, made the most logical recommendation that I have ever heard. And that is to pass a constitutional amendment which declares that a corporation and any other legally constituted organization is not a person. Consequently, they do not enjoy the free speech rights that were conferred upon us as individuals by the Constitution, and surely the framers meant free speech to apply to individuals. In the early days of this country, the activities of corporations were severely restricted by law, and consequently were consider to be constitutional if we declared corporations and organizations, these interest group organizations, not to be persons. Then we could control their activities and not have the kind of distorted issue advocacy that we see in campaigns which skirt the law and are clearly meant to tear down one candidate or support another candidate.
Thanks, caller. Senator Murray?
Well, the caller points out a real critical problem, and that is that the courts have declared that money is equal to free speech. So it allows people to give as much money as they want to, unencumbered, to independent expenditures, which can be a group of 4 people who decide they want to pool $100,000 apiece together and put an ad up on the television saying, call Senator Patty Murray and tell her whatever. And no one ever knows where that money came from, who these people are, and what groups that they are representing. And that has been upheld by the Constitution. So it is a challenge in campaign finance reform. The same as if as anybody who's a millionaire can put in their own money to whatever amount they want to in their campaign, making it virtually impossible for somebody like me to compete against them. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't move forward on campaign finance reform. That means that we should move forward on campaign finance reform. The measure that should go before the House will ban soft money. That will begin to make the steps in the right direction. And then let's see where we go over the next 2 to 4 years and what progress we can
Let's
make.
grab this call and we'll come back to you. Rochester, New York. Good morning.
Hi, thank you, C-SPAN. Ron, you said that the federal government isn't involved in affecting the behavior of children, but you're wrong.
I didn't hear what you said.
You said that the federal government isn't involved in the moral direction of children.
I said that if you deal with it, it should be at a local government level.
Well, what about federal crimes? Our entire legal system is based on the idea of deterring someone from committing a crime by posing a law before them that will put them in jail if they commit the act.
Well, most of that's all unconstitutional. There are only 3 federal crimes in the Constitution listed. So we have drifted a long time from the original intent and the purpose of our Constitution. So, yes, there are a lot of federal crimes. There are thousands, and every regulation is essentially a federal law. And I disagree with those. And I would say that if you want to deal with those kind of problems, whether it's smoking or drinking for children, it should be done in our home states. I mean, that's the way the Constitution clearly reads.
Did you want to follow up, caller?
Yeah. My main issue is campaign finance reform. I think that you're right around about opening it up to more candidates.
Right.
And one of the proposals that I have is to mandate for, say, House of Representative or senatorial elections that there be at least 3 debates. One, like a complete open primary beyond just Democratic and Republican candidates, completely open. And then a second where, say, only deferred, you have a series of votes where you decide who did best in these debates. And then and alongside the debates, also mandate that all candidates put forward for publication in their newspaper, in the newspapers in their district, proposals on different aspects of the federal government. How do they feel about defense? How do they feel about education? How do they feel about health care?
Thanks, caller. Congressman Paul?
I think all those goals are laudable. I would be cautious and would have to think it through completely because I don't like the word mandate from the federal level. We certainly have some authority over the federal elections of the senators and the congressmen. I wouldn't like to use the federal funds, but anything that we could do to work in that direction of openness and more discussion and more competition, I think the better. I think those are good suggestions.
From the Los Angeles Times, Young America's Foundation is purchasing the Reagan Ranch. It went on the market in 1996 for nearly $6 million. It is the 688-acre mountaintop property in California where the president spent about 345 days in his presidency. This is how the story looks this morning in USA Today by Jessica Lee. The purchase price has not been disclosed. Any reaction?
Well, to each his own. If they want it, buy it at the market value. I'm not too...
Have either of you heard of Young America's Foundation? It's a conservative group based in Herndon, Virginia.
I have not heard of it.
And they will use it as a retreat location. What else are you reading from the paper, Senator Murray?
Well, I am. My eye caught in the Washington Times this morning a really great story about reading together. It's a mother-daughter book club that mothers and daughters get together on Sunday afternoon and read books, talk about them. And what really caught my eye about this is the importance of literacy, the importance of young people learning to read, and the importance of families working together, and it really highlighted it in a positive way, and I was just impressed by that.
What else are you reading, Congressman?
Well, the top story in the Washington Post is Iraq's cowed Shiites lose zeal for rebellion. That's the very top headline. I've been very interested in and have spoken out a good bit about the Iraqi situation. I think we're still in a very dangerous situation there. I was strongly opposed to the bombing Iraq, and I think this is also confirmation of a failed policy that we follow, because after the Persian Gulf War, our government went and encouraged the Shiites and also the people in the north to rebel, and then we didn't do anything about it, so they were left stranded, and many of them were killed. Something like a modern-day Bay of Pigs, where they were expecting help but didn't get it. But yesterday's paper even reported something that I think is another consequence of our failed policy, and that is what we're doing in the Middle East is we are doing a very good job in bringing the radical fundamentalist Muslim elements together. The Iraqis and the Iranians are closer together than they probably have been in hundreds of years because of our threat with our bombs and our threat of war. So they are releasing prisoners. I think yesterday they sat down and had peace negotiations. Very, very important event occurring in the Middle East. The Muslim fundamentalists are getting stronger than ever. It doesn't serve our cause, and I think the more we threat, the more we intimidate, the more we want to bomb people, the more we're leading into another fiasco like Vietnam. We trade with Vietnam now. That's a much better way than trying to impose our will on Vietnam by going over there and dropping bombs. So I would say that this just points out again that we have a very, very poor foreign policy in the Middle East.
Fayetteville, North Carolina, on our Republican line. Good morning.
Good morning. I want to tell you how phony our president is on the smoking issue. If you can pull up where he was in Carlton, Kentucky, and he was sitting there in a warehouse talking to the tobacco people, and the smoke was just rolling up from out from under the table where he was holding his cigar underneath the table. And it was very obvious on TV. And it doesn't seem to me like that you want to punish the people who smoke by raising the prices, not to the tobacco companies. The tobacco companies are not going to pay this $5 a pack. I am, and I think I'm very bitter about it. Thank you.
I agree. He ought to be. Why should he be taxed? It's the most regressive tax. You're picking on people who have an addiction. They're addicted to this drug, and you know, the other thing on the economics of this, it's totally foolish. This idea of $1.50 or $2 tax on there in order for us to have a windfall up here. We're up here arguing now over how we're going to spend $500 billion windfield on this tobacco. So I think that the whole thing is absolutely foolish on what we're doing. The responsibility falls on the individual. But when the economics come into effect, you put on the tax and you drive the stuff into the underground economy. Canada put a huge tax on there. They didn't get any more revenues. So even this $500 billion windfall profit tax that they're going to have isn't going to come about, because people will either slow up on the use of cigarettes, maybe, or they will go to the underground economy and they'll buy it, or our tobacco companies will go overseas and sell their tobacco or something else. But we will not collect it once you price the cigarettes out of the market.
A viewer in Pennsylvania says, why is this administration not putting the same effort toward curtailing drug use among teenagers as it is toward stopping them from smoking? When was the last time you heard from a teenager overdosing on a cigarette? And another view from a viewer in Long Island who says, a question for callers who smoke: how would you feel if the FDA just ordered cigarette companies to remove all nicotine from cigarette tobacco? Question to all Ken Starr lovers: why haven't the CEOs of cigarette companies who lied under oath to Congress been indicted for perjury and for suborning perjury?